Welcome back. So today I want to talk about the Detroit Red Wings. I talk a lot about teams that are kind of playing with house money, right? So these are teams that, the expectations aren't that high for them. They're playing well. I look at the Anaheim Ducks as kind of doing the same thing right now. And there could eventually be an Anaheim Ducks video where I talk about their season as well. But I want to talk about Detroit. This wasn't really expected, right? Detroit was supposed to be one more year probably of rebuilding, figuring all this out. And it's not over. That's the weird thing. So Ottawa at the start of the year, it was all right, rebuild's over. Detroit hasn't said that, and I don't think it is. I just think that the pieces they've brought in and the moves that have been made have been very smart. Bringing in Nedeljkovic turns out to be a brilliant move. So far, Nedeljkovic's numbers have been excellent, and Detroit is on the rise. So if you're of the mind that Yzerman's overrated or he's not that good, this video probably won't make you feel very happy about it. So they're standing right now, they're number one in the wild card. Right, they're the number one wild card team, 25 games, 13-9-3 record for 29 points. Well ahead of the pace that was expected from them this year. Now, them moving up in the division is going to be tough. You have Florida, 24 games, 17-4-3 record, 37 points. You have Toronto, 25 games, 17-6-2 record, 36 points. And then you have Tampa, 23 games played, 14-5-4 record for 32 points. So it's going to be tough for them to move up. And then you look beneath them. Pittsburgh has a game in hand. They're 11-8-5. 27 points for the number 2 wildcard spot. We know that Malkin's going to come back at some point. Pittsburgh should start racking up a little bit here in terms of wins. Then you have Boston below the playoff line, but they're 12-8-1. They have 25 points in 21 games. So they have 4 games in hand on Detroit, and they're 4 points back. Now, as I always say, you got to win the games. So having games in hand is great, but if you're not going to win those games in hand, it doesn't matter. Was it 2 years ago? Dallas had a ton of games in hand, and they still frittered away some of what they had. Anyways, that does happen. Columbus is right beneath Boston, 24 points for them in 22 games, a 12-10 record. So for Detroit in general, they're in pretty good shape right now. Did they stay there? I wouldn't be that surprised if they end up falling off, but this is not really the year where a lot was expected of them anyways. So like I said, playing with house money. So April 19th of 2019, the team hired Steve Yzerman as GM, which was expected for a long time. When he left Detroit to go to Tampa, it didn't feel right to a lot of people that he would leave Detroit. He helped Tampa quite a bit. Tampa wins back-to-back cups, at least on some level, whether you think Yzerman's awesome or you don't. You have to admit that a lot of what Tampa was able to do was because of Yzerman's moves and what he was able to get done. And yeah, there's going to be cap problems, but if you create a very successful team, that means you've got a good team that's going to be higher paid. You're going to end up with cap problems. So the first year that he's general manager, they finished 17-49-5 by design, right? This is just, we're going to tear it down. They were 8th in the Atlantic last year, 19-27-10. They were 7th in the Central. And that was an unexpectedly decent record for Detroit last year. What impressed me the most with the Wings was their work ethic. They were never outworked in these games. They might have been a team with less talent, but they never were short on the work ethic. And that's carried over to this year. I don't know that I look at this Detroit team and say this is a really, really talented team overall. There are some talented players, but it's a very hardworking team. And they managed to steal some wins that maybe they shouldn't. And they've got a lot of games to overtime, which means you have some guaranteed points there. So Jeff Blashill's doing the best he can. He is still the coach. I remember as far back as 3-4 years ago, comments in the comment section trying to, we need to get rid of Blashill, and he's been there a long time. So one team that I do compare them to, their last playoffs being in 2016, one team I do compare them to is Chicago. Chicago, before they broke through, you could see signs. So 2006, 2007, they finished 31-42-9. And then the following season, they missed the playoffs, but they finished 40-34-8. And the belief was that when they missed the playoffs for that 5th time, that was the last time Chicago was going to miss the playoffs for a while. You could see with Kane, you could see with Taves, and with a lot of the players they had there, like Keith and whatnot, that this was a team that was going to be dangerous. This was a team that was going to be very good and might win a championship. And they did win a Stanley Cup in 2010. They won it in 2013, and they won it in 2015, right? Detroit to me, is on a similar trajectory. The one weakness I see on this team right now might be down the middle. And whether or not it's dealt with internally, whether or not it's going out and getting a free agent in the offseason, or whether it's a trade next summer, we'll see what Yzerman does. So down the middle, Larkin right now is their number one center. I think that when they become a contender and they're going for a championship, he might be the number two center. That's not an insult to Larkin. Usually, very good teams that are going to win have a number one, number two center. I just think your number one center should be that dynamic game breaker. And for a Larkin, hardworking, excellent player, point per game guy, I don't know that I see him as that dynamic game breaker that's going to end up being the guy who helps win them a Stanley Cup. Still captain. Don't have to be that dynamic game breaker to be captain either. Suter, number two center right now, I think he's provided them some good support after not being able to come to terms and stay in Chicago. Rasmussen, I think, is a decent third line center, and then you have Rowney as the number four currently. And so, again, down the middle, I think they are one center away from being pretty darn good. And whether that happens next summer or what they end up doing, we'll see. One question I do have is, so now that they're in the playoffs, they're in this spot, could Yzerman at the trade deadline, if they're still in this spot, say, we could go for this, and then maybe try to solidify this center spot a little bit more? Maybe go out and get a rental. Find somebody who's going to be a free agent next summer who's not going to sign where they are right now. Bring him to Detroit and then say, hey, you want to be part of something good here and stick around. We want to get your name on a long-term contract extension. And that's the kind of thing I could see maybe happening. And they're in the position where they might be able to make that happen. Because, again, Detroit might be a place that's popular to go to. You've got Yzerman there, and you've got this young, exciting team led by Raymond right now. 25 games, 10 goals, 12 assists, 22 points. Raymond has been the best of the rookies thus far. I don't really have all that much interest in who does or doesn't win Calder, because to me it's about how your career goes. And your Calder winner isn't always the best player from a rookie class. It's just the guy who had the best rookie year. And I think those are two different things. So Raymond's having this fantastic year. Is he the best of his rookie class? This year, yes. Long term, who knows? There's a lot of years left for these kids. Could be, absolutely, yes. We'll see. Larkin, 21 games, 10 goals, 11 assists, 21 points. Larkin's had a fantastic year. Bertuzzi, 20 games, 9 goals, 9 assists, 18 points. Has had a very strong year, too. His scoring was really good at the start of the year. It's dropped a bit since then, but he is still producing near a point a game when he's in the lineup, and that's really all you can ask for, right? Moritz Seider has been as advertised, if not more. 25 games, 3 goals, 14 assists, 17 points. Not bad for a rookie defenseman that at the time Yzerman drafted him, a lot of people said, I don't know what he's thinking. Why would you draft Seider there? And the names of the players who were preferred over Seider weren't as good as Seider so far. And this is the thing, he picks up a defenseman who could very well be, nobody's going to be Nick Lidstrom. Nobody's going to be Nick Lidstrom, but maybe he'll be Larry Murphy, right? So you have to have that scoring on the blue line. You have to have that really solid player, and Seider's it. He's been fantastic. Vlad Nemesnikov, 25 games, 8 goals, 5 assists, 13 points for Nemesnikov. He's had a resurgence, and maybe he ends up drawing some attention at the trade deadline. Maybe Detroit, if they're in this position, again, let's say Boston goes on a run, Detroit ends up below the line. I'll be interested to see if Yzerman says, I mean, we might make the playoffs, we might not. I might as well sell off some assets, get some future stuff here, and see what we can do at the draft table, because I don't think we're going to win a cup this year. So, well, again, it's all about how Yzerman approaches this and whether or not he looks at some of these guys that have a good value now and says, we might as well get something for them. Pius Suter, 25 games, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to the center position. If you had a center that was putting up points similar to what Nemesnikov is here, Nemesnikov can play center as well. But if you can find somebody who can put that up in this spot down the middle, even better, right? Hronik, 23 games, 2 goals, 10 assists, 12 points. He's been very good this year. And Fabry, 25 games, 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points. So these are your top scorers. Fabry's on pace for about 35, 36 points. And it's not a star-studded lineup, right? So that's why I think we're probably one star player away from what Detroit ends up being. In net, Nedeljkovic, 8-3-3, 920 save percentage, 2.6 goals against average. Thomas Greiss, 5-6 with an .899 save percentage, 3.34 goals against. Nedeljkovic has been the better of the two. He is still a rookie. Nedeljkovic right now still has rookie status, and he will be in the running for the Calder along with Seider and Raymond. And this is why people get excited in Detroit. Their goals for, they're 22nd in the league at 2.8 goals per game. Goals against, they're also 22nd at 3.12 goals against per game. And again, those numbers are in the mediocre range, and they lead you to think eventually they're probably going to lose some games here. They're 26th on both the power play and the penalty kill, 14.9% on the power play, 75.3% on the penalty kill. That adds up to about 90. So that's below average, and those numbers tell you it'll probably unravel at some point. Their shots per game, they're getting 28.9, they're allowing 33.2. But as I've already said in this video and been saying lately, it doesn't matter. All these numbers, if they end up falling below the playoff line, it doesn't matter. They're trending in the right direction. This is the kind of upward momentum that fans in Ottawa and Vancouver were looking for this year, and they didn't see it. This is the kind of upward momentum that Buffalo fans had really hoped would finally be taking hold this year, and it hasn't. Coming out of that rebuild can be tough. And for Yzerman, within 2 years to be here is amazing. So looking at some of their draft picks, I'm not going to look at all of them. Simon Edvinsson, defenseman, 2021, drafted 6th overall. He is already being talked about as maybe he'll be the best player in that draft class. And the Red Wings might have got an absolute steal at number 6, which when I was doing the previews for the 2021 draft, I mentioned it. There was at least an idea that there were scouts out there that thought Edvinsson might be the best player in his draft class. So you've already got Seider. Edvinsson's going to get added. That's another star on the blue line. And it's going to make Detroit that much better, right? Sebastian Cossa, goaltender, having an excellent year last I looked in juniors. And so he's the future in net for them. 2018, before he arrived, Jonathan Berggren, right winger, drafted 33rd overall. He's having a very good year in Grand Rapids. 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points in 19 games. 2019, one of those late round steals may end up being Elmer Soderblom, who is a left winger. Berggren being a right winger, which again that comes back to the whole down the middle argument, right? That they really need that top blue chip prospect down the middle. Soderblom, he's huge. Very big, very, very big guy. And that's not reason alone to pick somebody up. But outside of being a really large, physically imposing player, he's also pretty darn good. And he'll be a guy that can just park himself in front of the net and the puck will go in. Bounce in off of him sometimes. Sometimes he'll bury the rebound. So there are reasons to look at this lineup now and say, all right, some of this is going to help. Berggren's going to come in on the wing. He'll be a good addition. Soderblom likely ends up coming in. Usually with the late round steals, they're just going to take longer. There are times where teams will say, all right, well, we have a choice between 2 guys. Well, that guy's going to be ready in 4 years. This one will be ready in 2. We'll take the guys ready in 2, right? So we'll see how long it takes for these guys to come in, whether Edvinsson ends up being a storyline going into next season, being added with Seider. And there's others. I just wanted to talk about those 4. Now, their recent winning streak. November 24th, they win at home against St. Louis 4-2. The 3 stars in that game were Nedeljkovic, Larkin, and Fabry, in that order. November 27th, they won in overtime, 3-2 against Buffalo. That was versus Buffalo. Raymond scores the winner at 26 seconds into overtime. Didn't take him long at all. November 30th, they win 2-1 at Boston. In the 3 stars were Nemesnikov and Stahl. Stahl got the game-winning goal in that one. December 3rd, they win 4-3 in a shootout at home against Seattle, which was a fun game. Seattle gets themselves the point there. Your 3 stars in that one, Raymond and Fabry were in the 3 stars for that. So Fabry has been in the 3 stars twice during this winning streak. So while he only has the 5 goals, 6 assists for 11 points in 25 games, he's been playing well during this winning streak. And then last night, December 4th, they win 4-3 in overtime against the New York Islanders. This one in Detroit as well. Seider with the winner at 3:33 of overtime. So they have 2 overtime wins and a shootout win. 2 regulation wins. So Detroit, they're getting their points. They're getting the games into overtime. They're winning the 3-on-3 battles. They win in the shootout, and that gets fans hyped up. One thing that I've noticed is that if your team wins 5-2, or your team wins 4-3 in overtime, fans will get really hyped up about the overtime victory. Now, again, the way that I look at things, I'm more impressed by the regulation wins, by a complete team game from top to bottom. But yeah, the overtime games, that'll hype you up, and the shootout wins can be nice as well. But their upcoming schedule is going to give us a good idea of where they're at. So their next 5 games should tell us a better idea of where they're at, and then they'll be at 30 games on the season. So coming up, they're at home against Nashville next. Nashville's a really good test for them. Then they go to St. Louis on December 9th. That should be a good one too. Now, St. Louis has had some ups and downs. More downs than ups over the last few weeks, but we'll see. And then they go to Colorado the next night. That's going to be tough. I can't see them getting wins in both. I could see them getting a win in one or the other. Depends with Colorado too. Will Johansson still be the starter, or will they have Kemper back? Will Francouz show up? What's going on with Francouz? And then they have a few days off before they play at home on the 14th against the Islanders again. So the Islanders will be looking for revenge for that game from last night. And then on the 16th, they go to Carolina. So the next 5 games will give us a better idea, I think, of where they're at. So their last 5, and again, there's St. Louis there, then there's Buffalo. Well, Buffalo is one of the bottom teams of the league. Boston, it's a good win there. Seattle has been struggling, but they've won 5 out of 7, so that's an impressive win. And then the win over the Islanders. And of course, for the Islanders, they've been through it over the last month or so, right? Basically since the start of the season. But I'm going to be interested to see how things go for them in Carolina. They're familiar with Carolina from last season, of course. And yeah, I will be interested to see how long they can stay in it. I do not think that at the end of the year, Detroit ends up in the playoffs. But the fact that I'm making this video, the fact that we're talking about it, shows that there is a plan here, and it's working so far. This is a team that's ahead. The last time that a team was ahead, and I saw similar feelings about it, was Toronto. The first year for Austin Matthews, Toronto did much better than was expected. Raised the bar really, really high. Detroit isn't in that realm yet, but who knows, right? It all depends on how far the kids can take them. The one thing you do have to watch for, too, with Raymond, with Seider, with Nedeljkovic, does one of them hit that wall that rookies can hit in the NHL? You'd have to think Nedeljkovic, having spent as much time as he has in the pros, he should be good. You shouldn't have that. But do Raymond or Seider, when you get into that 82-game grind, do they hit a wall at some point where the production stops, and then you have to rely on it from somewhere else in the lineup? Or maybe for Seider, he just starts to tire out and it's just not working for him, and then you need other members of the blue line to really step up. So there are still some questions out there, but it's fun that we're here. It's fun that Detroit's back in the mix, and Mickey Redmond doesn't have to grumble about how awful everything is like he did during the 2019-2020 season. I felt bad for Mickey that year. But here we are. Detroit, relevant. It's December, and right now they're in a playoff spot. So the question I have is, can they stay in that spot? And do people share the opinion I have? That is, it's not important if they get the spot this year. If they do, great. If they don't, they're on the right track either way. Because again, it's about showing that progress. And this year, that progress is there. They look like they may finally be back above 500. And that may help to attract other players, free agents and whatnot too. So you've got Yzerman, you've got a team that's on the rise. They may not have a problem filling out rosters starting this coming summer. Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.